Dude, crazy, man. Crazy times. And this is a leadership podcast, Dr. Danny. And I'll tell you, that is what I lacked. I lacked it for myself. And because I was not leading myself, I was completely incapable of leading anybody else. I built out this 10 out of 10 company, right, with tremendous potential. And I wanted a 10 out of 10 team to provide a 10 out of 10 experience, but I was a 3 out of a 10 leader.
Yeah.
And so I would get frustrated because the team wasn't helping me grow the business, and the business wasn't growing. And I would look at it and I'd be like, this is what is going on here. And, earlier on, I just didn't understand what it meant to be a leader as an entrepreneur. And I suffered the consequences as a result. But, there is no way, and it's called the law of the lid. A lot of people know it as the law of the lid, but there is no way you can ever have a 10 out of 10 team if you are a 3 out of 10 leader.
Welcome to the League of Leaders show, where we reject mediocrity and share examples of how leadership is not just for the office, but its impact on all areas of our lives.
Matt is someone that I met going through the Squire Program with my oldest son last summer. And Matt just impressed me so much with his vulnerability and just being honest about being what it looks like to be a leader and to be a father and being a husband. I just want to bring you back on here to share your story with everyone, share what I heard from you. And not only that, we have such an amazing guest as well, your awesome other half, Christian, your wife as well. You guys, I want to know what it was like, because what you shared with me that day, you talked a lot about having a mask in your business and having a mask in your life. And we're gonna jump into that, but I'm gonna let you introduce yourself to the audience, introduce you to the people here, Matt and Christian.
Cool. Ladies first.
Me first. All right. I am Matt's other half, Christin. We've been married almost 17 years. We'll be celebrating 17 years next week, just a few days. Yeah. Which is super exciting. We've been through many years of growth and change and all of the things together. So yeah, that's
Thank
me.
you so much for being on, Christin. I'm so excited to hear your voice in this story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt Schneider, husband, father, we have a 13-year-old who'll be 14 this month as well. Really lucked out because his birthday is on the 25th. So every 6 months on the day, that kid gets a celebration and showered with gifts. He is our pride and joy, and somebody that we're very, very proud of on how he's developing as a young man. Background is in law enforcement. From a professional standpoint, started there. Christian and I became entrepreneurs, kind of stumbled into it based on some opportunity that was presented to us back in 2013. Started that company, learned some really hard lessons, lessons that absolutely carried over into our personal lives, even though it was from a professional standpoint, and struggled for a few years, and ended up being able to come back from that, sold that company in 2019. And now Chris and I are part of a variety of different companies. We have ownership and own a handful of different companies, and are just having a good time with this wacky thing we call the human journey.
And you guys are just for me, a role model for a relationship, for a family and a couple. And I want to backtrack a little bit too, Matt. So you said that you happened to become an entrepreneur because an opportunity came up. So it was not something that you considered or thought about before. It was just something that maybe happened. You're like, hey, let's do it. And was Christin, was she aware of this? Was it something she was on board about? I kind of want to know, because that's a huge shift from being, hey, I'm going to work in law enforcement, to now being a business, a totally different skill set, perhaps, and mindset. So can you share with us a little bit about what that experience was like for you and for you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This will be entertaining for your audience.
Yeah.
So, I had never thought about going down the path of becoming an entrepreneur until this opportunity presented itself. But just to kind of tee up some background is, I'd been with the sheriff's office for about a decade at that point. and I was on the SWAT team. I'd been on the SWAT team for 5 years as an entry operator. I'd been on the U.S. Marshal task force. And at the time that this opportunity sort of fell in our lap, I had two of the coolest gigs in law enforcement, SWAT and undercover narcotics. So I bought drugs for a living. I got to drive around with a big beard. Christen said it had a smell to it. And I got to pretend like I was somebody that I wasn't. And it was a really cool time. And then when shit hit the fan and SWAT was called out, I got to go play there too. So was having a really good time in law enforcement, enjoying the progression there, and the stability of knowing when our paychecks would be in the account and what we would be making, and then all of a sudden, a business that had been in the family for a long, long time, that my grandmother and her brother started back in, I think, like the 40s or something. They owned a outdoor, almost like an REI type of store, like a sportsman's warehouse kind of thing in downtown San Francisco on Market Street. And they were developing that area. If you don't, if you're not aware of how downtown San Francisco is laid out, like Market Street is prime real estate. Like it's getting really close to the Fisherman's Wharf. Sometimes I call it a dwarf. But I believe it was the Hilton approached the family and said, hey, we don't care about the business. We don't care about the building the business is in. We want to wreck it all and build a new hotel here. My mom and her two siblings, and then my uncle, my grandmother's brother, they negotiated the deal, ended up getting it across the finish line. And my mom and her siblings and uncle all came into a good amount of cash. That was the point where my mom had approached me and said, I don't really know what to do with this per se, but I'd like to invest it. I should invest it. You seem like a safe bet. And, what might you do with this? And right around that time is when Chris and I were in Newport Beach, California for a wedding. And we went and walked over to a beach bicycle rental shop. And it just so happened that engaging with the owner, who was a retired firefighter, he was saying that he was looking to sell it. And so I was like, well, my mom just said if I can think of something. And Chris and I, we love the warm weather. We love Southern California because of the weather, not because of really anything else. And being at the beach, and that's like our happy place, right? So I'm looking at this bike shop that's literally like feet away from the Pacific Ocean in Southern California. And I'm like, well, what do you want for this thing? And I think the price point was $60,000. I think that's what he wanted.
I don't remember.
I think that's what it was. It wasn't a big number.
No, it wasn't.
And so I'm like, okay, well, give me some background, like I'm interested. I've got access to 60,000.
Matt was ready to pack up and move.
Oh, right then and there.
That day.
Like, Danny,
great.
Yeah, you know me. Like I'm an action taker, and it freaks Christen out. But he could see, like she knew. She's like, oh no, this is not good. So I'm talking to him, and I find out that he built out some living quarters upstairs of this little shop, which was not approved or permitted by the city, and it was definitely like under the radar. But he had this full living circumstance. And Carter,
he was only like 3 or 4.
Yeah, he was a baby, and I'm like, Christen, we can live upstairs and we can do this and we can do this bicycle shop stuff. And so I'm asking this guy about his revenue. And now I have no entrepreneurs. Like my business acumen is very, very low, but I'm like asking like the general entrepreneurial type questions, or what I think is like what to ask.
Yeah.
And he's telling me, and it's cash flowing. I mean, it's a cash only business. And, anybody who knows anything about the state of California is, they love to take as much money from entrepreneurs as they absolutely can get their little claws on. And so one way to avoid taxes, and this guy's long gone now at this point, so I wouldn't get him in any trouble, but the IRS would be highly interested in this story if he still owned the business. But he's like, well, it's all cash. So, I just report what I report, and then I just don't report some. So he's like, so if you look at the books are only going to show what I report, but that's not the full picture of the revenue. I said, okay, got it. I wouldn't play like that. Right. So I'm like I will follow the rules. And so Christen's now getting more and more freaked out because she sees that I'm highly interested and she's hearing that like living upstairs illegally with a 3-year-old, not reporting taxes, but like, she's like, I'm starting to salivate. I'm like, we can live by the ocean. I'm trying to like, figure out how to justify my own mind. Right. Like I'm trying to sell myself on it. We can be the absolute best salesman of ourselves when we really want to do something. So her parents come into town. Her dad is a retired executive with Hewlett Packard, and very wise, very intelligent man. Spent a lot of time overseas. He led the legal team that would pursue other companies like Sony or Apple or others that would infringe on Hewlett Packard's and Compaq's patents. So Christen's like, I got to go get my dad. And she's like, I got to find somebody who can bring some reasoning.
Yes, because Matt told his mom, he calls his mom and she's like, yes, let's all move. All of us right now, let's move. Just buy it. Let's go. And I'm like, no. Hold up. Like, let's slow down.
Right there. Let's do it.
So I felt kind of on an island because I'm the only one like, hang on, let's talk about this. So I'm like, Dad, you need to go with Matt to this bike shop and you need to see if it's like a legit thing. So yeah, you can take it back over. Go on.
No, I want to hear your side. So your dad comes over.
He came and my dad was like, no, this is not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend it. And Matt respects my dad's opinion, luckily. So Matt was like, okay, I guess we're not. I could see he was sad. He was a little crushed, but
my dreams of living on the ocean and making all kinds of money and being entrepreneur just like evaporated. I knew he was right though. I mean, I knew he was right. And but we're driving home after the wedding and it's like a 10-hour drive or 12-hour drive, something like that. And she sees my wheels turning. Like I'm like looking ahead, but I'm somewhere else, right? She can see it. Yeah. Christin is one that we balance each other out really well. If your audience has never read the book, Come As You Are, I highly recommend it. It's a book that actually Christin read first, recommended to me when we were having a lot of marital problems. But it explains the value and importance of having a gas pedal and a brake pedal in the relationship and how, both of us have gas and brake pedals, but generally speaking, when one person is the gas, the other person is very healthy to be more of the brake, right? Prior to that, I always saw and processed Christin as being like an anchor to my ideas and to my creativity and didn't realize at the time. What's that?
She was holding you back.
I thought she was holding me back. You're taking all the wind out of my sails, right? And I would just get so frustrated by it, not realizing that without her doing that, I would literally fly off the edge of a mountain at 1,000 miles an hour, right? Like I'm just all gas all the time. So really, really good book. Highly recommend it. Whether you're having marital issues or relationship issues or not, it's just a great book for kind of grasping the male-female dynamic of things. But so she's not the risk taker I am. She's the brake and I'm the gas pedal. And she loves to have certainty, right? And when I was with the sheriff's office, and she had a great job as well. She had worked for a company for a long time and worked her way up in that company. And there wasn't a lot of uncertainty. We were living a really healthy, like middle class-ish life, right? Like a comfortable life. We, not a lot of debt, kind of like normal debt, vehicles. We had a couple of houses, and like, minimal stuff. But we were going on that vacation once, twice a year. We were just kind of like doing all right. And so that's a very comfortable place for Christin to be. It's her happy place. Well, I
used to be my happy place.
Yeah. Now she's much, much better. But at this time, and based on my upbringing and something that, we didn't talk about is, my mom's currently on her 8th marriage. I grew up in an environment where we had constant restarts, constant packing up and moving and, start, stop, reset. And so I just grew up like figuring it out. Right. And being very comfortable with like, okay, I've been doing this thing for 10 years and yeah, I've got a couple cool gigs, but I don't mind stopping that and starting something new. It doesn't freak me out. So she sees me staring off into the distance for 12 hours. And at one point she was like, what are you thinking about? And I think she partly didn't want to know, but partly did want to know. And I'm like, I'm just thinking. But what I was thinking about was, what do I know really well? Like I have this opportunity where my mom is willing to invest money. What can I do? So once we left that bike shop, I was like, we got to own a business. And so I call myself oftentimes an accidental entrepreneur. What I knew well is tactics. I knew, SWAT, US Marshals, quite a bit of time doing that and quite a number of different operations with it. So I'm like, well, what if we opened up a self-defense training center and we could build it out really, really awesome and open it up to the government and the community, because Idaho is a very pro Second Amendment, pro self-defense state. And I'm like, that's it. So by the time we got home, I knew what the business model was going to be. I had the name picked out and everything in my mind was like already set. So by the time we got back again and we went over to my mom's house, I'm like, this is it. She's like, rock and roll, let's go. And Christin's like, what is happening right now?
Well, then he took that idea to my dad and my dad was like, this is a great idea, and was helping him build out like the 3D model of what it would look like and everything. So everybody was super excited. I was not super excited. No, I was resistant.
Well,
I was excited, but I was very worried about the risk because I'm risk adverse by nature. I feel like I'm more risk adverse. And so I was just like, why are you stirring things up when we're comfortable, we're happy? Like, why are we taking this on right now?
Because I don't like being comfortable.
Yep. Totally.
So Christin takes approach of like, all right, I can't stop this train. Like, it has left the station. I can't stop it. And so she kind of just checks out, like, not a lot of questions at that point. I'm giving her various updates, and I was perfectly happy with that because I didn't want the break to be giving resistance. Right. So she decided to, like, if I don't look at the monster in the room, that monster does not exist. Right. And I took full advantage of it. I was just like gaining as much speed as a freight train as I possibly could. And it stayed that way. I mean, we got to the point to where we opened up, I think 6 months or so we worked on this project because it was a big deal. I mean, it was a 60,000 square foot operation. 30,000 of it was inside, 30,000 was outside, full mock-ups of houses and banks and mat rooms and simulators and vehicles. And I mean, we did it right. We did not, one piece of advice I got from one of her dad's friends, actually, that had spent a lot of time overseas and a lot of time in like high threat environments. He says, don't build on a shoestring. I said, okay. So we did it right. And it looked like a movie set. It was, we had our first EOD SEAL team come through, or not the SEAL team, but the EOD guys attached to the SEALs come through within a month or so. And so we had a really high level team come through right away. A law enforcement, a UC rescue class was our very first one. And then we were kind of going down this path, and I had plenty of working capital at the time. And so I wasn't really worried about it. And then we started burning through cash. Like, I went into this fully focused on just building things out, and I put virtually no energy. I didn't even know to put energy. You don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that just working hard wouldn't be enough, right? I didn't know that leadership in law enforcement and leadership in an environment where there's a rank and file and a command structure didn't translate into the civilian world. And I started to figure out pretty damn quick. So we started burning through cash, and it got to a point where I came to Christen and said, hey, I could use the help. And I could use cheap/free help.
Yeah, you just call your wife cheap and free.
Oh yeah. Well, wait till we get to the point where I fired her. And that fun story. Yeah. So she left her job and came on board to help. And that's really when things started to go sideways with us as a couple. And when, like, we were going in the wrong direction with the business and the wrong direction relationally, and it got ugly there for a little while. But I'll pause there and see what you have to say. You have to say.
Yeah.
Everybody else has to say.
No, I really want to hear about what it was like for Christen to see you make these huge shifts and then ask her to drop everything she's worked for up until that point to kind of, save you in the business. I want to know what Christen was thinking and where her heart and her mind was at the time.
Yeah. Well, it was challenging. I mean, in some ways it was exciting because it's like, oh, this new thing. And now he's got it off the ground. Like, it's a real thing now. It's happening. It's not just a thought or something he's conjured up. It's happening. And so I was excited in some ways, but also just super nervous. Like, I didn't know what to expect. And the challenging part was he was just like, I need help and I can't pay somebody. And so I'm like, okay, well, we're fully invested. Like, I've got to come just do whatever I can. But that wasn't clearly defined. And so we were butting heads all the time because he's trying to run the business and he brings me in and I'm trying to run the business, but we're not doing it together. We were very much just like in survival mode. Neither of us knew what we were doing, and we were trying to do things separately within the same business, and it wasn't working. And I started to get resentful because I was working for free and felt like I was working hard, but getting nowhere. And he wasn't recognizing the work I was putting in even. So not only am I working for free, but he's like, you're not doing it right. Let me do this. He'd tell me all the time, stay in your lane. I'm like, I don't know what my lane is. Where's my lane? I'm like, I'm happy to stay in it, but where is it? Trying to wear all the hats. And we were just so, I don't know, frantic. And then eventually it's like we just shut down, and he started doing his thing and I started doing my thing, and there wasn't much communication. It was just like, okay, yeah, I don't know. It got rough because there wasn't communication. There wasn't cohesiveness. There was just both of us trying to survive kind of separately.
And you didn't even know what survival meant. It was just like, we're just going to do something and hopefully something sticks. That's what it sounds like. And it sounds like you guys were doing it, playing your two separate games and your own, with your own rules that you kind of co-create individually. That's
totally.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Making it up as we went.
Yeah.
But not doing it as a team.
And then he would stay at the business late till like midnight. He'd be there. So then I'd have to go pick up our son from school and like do all the things. And he was missing out on a lot of stuff with our son. And it did, like, I just became resentful of the business, of him not like prioritizing his family, just of all of that. And it did get to a point where he fired me / I was done working for free. And working hard. And I'm like, I'm just going to go work for somebody who will value me and pay me. Like, I'm out of here. And he's like, good. See you later.
See ya.
Whoa.
And fast forward to like 2 months or something, and I'm begging for her to come back.
Well, yeah, because then we had a really fantastic manager who worked for us, and he ended up deciding to leave. And which, when you have such wonderful employees that you value, it's so painful to let them go, but at the same time, you want to see them grow too. And he stuck with us through very challenging times, and I am appreciative of that. But yeah, when he left, Matt was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, who can I bring in? And then he's like, will you come back? So then I was back in it again.
Dude, crazy, man. Crazy times. And this is a leadership podcast, Dr. Danny. And I'll tell you, that is what I lacked. I lacked it for myself. And because I was not leading myself, I was completely incapable of leading anybody else. I built out this 10 out of 10 company, right, with tremendous potential. And I wanted a 10 out of 10 team to provide a 10 out of 10 experience, but I was a 3 out of a 10 leader.
Yeah.
And so I would get frustrated because the team wasn't helping me grow the business, and the business wasn't growing. And I would look at it and I'd be like, this is what is going on here. And, earlier on, I just didn't understand what it meant to be a leader as an entrepreneur. And I suffered the consequences as a result. But, there is no way, and it's called the law of the lid. A lot of people know it as the law of the lid, but there is no way you can ever have a 10 out of 10 team if you are a 3 out of 10 leader. And so things just kept deteriorating because they weren't the problem. The business wasn't the problem. The model wasn't the problem. It was that as the lid of the company, and taking this approach of like, do as I say, not as I do. Like, I'm the lead. Like, I own the place. Like, just like, this is what I pay you to do. Go and do it. And I looked at the employees as an employees, instead of looking at them as like, we are a team and you don't work for me, like you work with me. Like, instead of looking at it the way that I should have been looking at it, and I later learned how to look at it and approach it. That's when you lose key people. That's when, you lose market share. That's when you have other competitors start to come into town. And all of a sudden you're racing your fees and your costs to the bottom just to try to keep up, which is also the wrong thing to do. So,
and we had a great team too, is the thing. It was totally leadership, not just by you, but by me as well. Like, I didn't know. And we're both trying to lead separately, not together, and trying. Well,
you were looking to be led. Like,
I was looking to be led too. Yes.
I wasn't leading, right? I mean, she was scheduling meetings. So she dealt with the financials, but because the financials were so ugly, she would be, and I was actually just talking to her about this the other day because it came up in conversation on date night. Date night? Yeah, it was date night when we went to Mediterranean food. But I was like, you were responsible for the financials, and you would put these meetings on the books, and I would either cancel it, not show up for it, double book myself, or, I would do anything but come to these meetings. And I would just be like, Christin, I know what we need is to make more money. So just like, leave me alone so I can figure out how to make more money. Well, the problem was, it was a lot more than that, right? Like, she needed much more than just the we need to make more money for her to be able to do her job and do it well and be set up for success. Right. And so, we could literally have multiple hour podcasts on all the things that I did wrong, and the areas where taking that fake it till you make it approach did not serve me well. And it truly, it does not serve any entrepreneur well.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that you got into business ownership and became an entrepreneur, invited your wife to be an entrepreneur as well. But you said the leadership skills you had from SWAT and from your background in law enforcement did not translate. And what that looked like was, do as I would say because I say so. It's a chain of command, basically. That did not work. in a business. So what made that shift? Things were not working. Things were falling apart. Your business and your relationship was bleeding. What shifted for you that gave you that awareness, but for you to take action on it? What shifted?
Well, we got to a point to where, like me on a personal level, I had gained like 60 pounds. I was working hours. It wasn't for a lack of like effort by way of the hours we were putting in. I mean, we were putting in the hours, but I was driving through the drive-throughs at Taco Bell or, wherever. And, just getting to a point where mentally and physically I was deteriorating as well. And so I found myself massively overweight. And the bank accounts were like empty. At this point, we had liquidated both of our homes. We had moved to a little townhouse. Like we were at the end of like the road. Like we didn't have much more runway left to go. And so at that point, I was not willing to lose my family. Like, as I mentioned, I grew up in a house, many houses actually in many different cities and towns, because of divorce and because of failed relationships. And I just committed to myself a long time ago, long before I met Christen, that I would never put my family through what I had gone through, right? My kids would never know what that was like. And so I was unwilling to give up on it. But I also knew that the fake it till you make it approach that I had been taking and being really unauthentic with myself and others just was not, it was clearly not serving me well. It was clearly not serving my family well. So finally just started having the real conversations and sat down with a guy who was a trusted advisor and somebody that I felt I could just be real and honest with, because I was not sharing with the team what our financial state was. I wasn't sharing with anybody what was actually going on. So nobody was able to help. So I downloaded what was actually happening. And he started for the first time introducing me to personal and professional development. And, that is a professional development. Law enforcement is very prominent. You're always going to courses. You're always involved in things for professional development. But when it comes to a personal development thing, that's as foreign as Japanese, right? And I didn't understand really what it was. And that's when I started getting introduced to it and understanding that leadership is always the problem and it is always the solution. And if I'm going to solve the issues that are happening within the company, I've got to work on myself. And then I've got to work on the leadership of others. And that just became this journey of really focused energy of personal and professional development that now has been a major cornerstone of our life and success for the last several years.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing that there's professional development and personal development. A lot of people consider even professional development like hard skills, like just like these hard skills. And personal development is kumbaya to a lot of people, and it has that kind of rap to it. And it's more of those softer skills. So what was that experience going into personal development for yourself? What were you like maybe the one or, the three things that you really took that you really leveled you up? Like the first couple of concepts that you took action on, you just saw huge transformation, huge changes. What shifted in your mindset, your actions that you were taking, or what worked for you in those, those couple of points? I know it's hard.
Yeah, it is. It really is hard. But, leadership gets thrown around a lot. And there's many definitions of it. There's countless books on leadership. And when you really simplify it and just boil it down, leadership is found in two ways: forced leadership and then voluntary leadership, meaning that people, I use Hitler, for example. Hitler, we know, massacred, like 6 million Jews, right? But he personally didn't do it. He had droves of minions that did it, right? He had generals that did not believe in what was happening. He had many assassination attempts happen, and some of them happened within his own rank and file. There are people that followed him and carried out these horrific orders because they knew that if they didn't follow those orders, they would be the next one being marched to the gas chamber or lined up on the firing squad. And they knew what their destiny would be. So they not because they wanted to follow him and believed in what was happening, but because out of fear of the consequences, they followed those orders. That's forced leadership. Excuse me. Voluntary leadership, that is when people follow you regardless of what your rank is, regardless of what your title is. And nothing matters other than you have moral authority. Like you are somebody who has core values. Those core values are are righteous in nature, and you don't talk with your mouth with them. You talk with your feet with them. You live by them, right? And people, they want to be led by those who are properly leading themselves in the right directions. And so you get to a place where you are influencing other people who want to be influenced by you. Mm. And that was one of the most, I think, profound things that I originally took away, is I need to lead myself in a way to where I'm being completely authentic and not wearing a mask, and in a way that I'm speaking with my actions, and that people want to follow me and be influenced by me because of the way they see I'm living. And that was a journey in and of itself to round that corner. But that was a big aha moment, is, me walking around saying, look, I own the place. Like, I pay you, do this. And realizing that they were doing, because they didn't want to get fired. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to get, in trouble. But behind my back, I don't know what they were saying. I'm sure it wasn't pretty, and I'm positive it was justified. Right. So that was a big one for me. What about for you?
Well, before we go to Christin, because I want to indulge in this for a second to hear Christin's side even more impactful too, is that you said that you started operating with moral authority, and with your actions, you started to act and do as you say you were going to do. But what were you doing, acting? What was your days looking like, more so stepping into moral authority, that you realize these are the actions I'm taking now versus the actions that I wasn't taking that gave you that moral authority that others want to follow?
Yeah. When you're not being authentic and you're presenting yourself as one person, when the reality is you're very different, the universe has a really good way of serving up humble pie, right? And creating chaos as a result of living unauthentically. So, there's nobody that if you were to inject with True Serum would not have skeletons in their closet that they would tell you about, right? Everybody's got skeletons in their closet. Everybody errs. Everybody sins. But some of us, we bring on way more problems into our lives than are necessary, and it's self-inflicted, and it's self-sabotage. And so, you can't talk about, being somebody who understands the importance of health and wellness when you're driving through the Taco Bell and, clearly like overweight, right? You can't talk about somebody who values family when you and your wife are two ships passing at sea in the middle of the night, and there's like no connection there, no fulfillment there, right? You can't be owning a business that's failing and tell everybody how cool it is to be an entrepreneur. So it's just really becoming aligned with what's real and not putting on this front. There's so many people out there who they create this false reality, and they try to present it as if it's real. And when you are not living authentically, you are absolutely creating a circumstance where that will come back and bite you, because it's just not real, and you're being a fake, and you're being a fraud. And when you're a hypocrite, that will never serve you well, and that will damage relationships. That will create so much turmoil in your life. And so it was really just reducing the number of things that I was doing that were out of alignment with who I knew I could be, who I wanted to be. Stop blaming the business for my actions. Stop blaming the people, my wife, the team, the economy, whatever it was. Stop blaming all of it for what was happening, and really just start looking at myself and realizing, like, I have the power and control to change my circumstances. I own that. Nobody can take away from me my attitude or my effort when it comes to fixing this. And nobody can do the work for me. Like, nobody can step in and do the work that needs to be done on my behalf. I've got to do that. And so, it was a bunch of puzzle pieces that needed to get put together. And, without all of them in place, I didn't have a complete path, but that was the journey, is getting all those things ironed out.
Okay. So I'm hearing that you exposed a lot of lies that you had about yourself and your life, and you just started chipping away at them one at a time and exposing them for as they really are, acknowledging them, and then making a change.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Thank you for sharing that. Christen, talk to us about your experience for yourself. Not just for Matt's experience as he's doing that work and leading himself, but how it impacted you and how it impacted you maybe starting to do the work for yourself. What did that look like for you, Christen?
Yeah. So Matt hit on a lot of things that were aha moments for me as well. I realized I remember one time my dad came to me and he's like, "You're unhappy." And I am generally a very happy person. And my dad's like, "I've never seen you this unhappy. What's going on?" And that's when I was like, just kind of let him know. And he's like, "I'm going to have your uncle call you." My uncle's a psychiatrist. So he's like, "I'm going to have your uncle call you and talk to you." Yeah. He's like, "I don't even know what to do with this." But I realized one thing, my dad, he's always been good at, in my upbringing, telling us when we complain about things, you're not the victim. Don't play the victim. And I think for a long time, similar to Matt, I was blaming Matt and I was very resentful and I just kind of shut down. And then I started to realize like I have more control over me, at least, and how I act and react and what I'm doing and how I'm showing up in life. And so shutting down is not going to improve the situation at all.
Being
like I need to,
is not going to serve you.
Yeah, I just need to take control of what I can control and take care of myself, take care of my son, take care of my family. But yeah, I started to just pursue that personal development as well, kind of separate from that. We kind of did some of it together, I guess. But one thing that was really important for me too is I realized I did like this personality assessment with a good friend of mine, and she highlighted to me that I am trying to be very dominant and very, very much like Matt is how I was trying to show up in life, which is not congruent with who I truly am. I'm much more of like, I want to help people. I want to serve. And I just don't have the same dominant personality. And so again, I wasn't being authentic to me because I'm feeling like I need to show up in this way. And that's not who I am. And circumstantially, every once in a while, it's okay to show up in that way, but to constantly live as someone that's not you is challenging. So that realization to me highlighted too, the fact that I have gifts that are different than Matt and can contribute to what he brings to our relationship. And I don't have to be like him or operating at the same level as him. So.
And when you found out those gifts for yourself, how did that impact now Matt? Like when you started to own and utilize this but rediscovered power about yourself, how did it look like in your relationship? And how did it look like, supporting Matt maybe in that business role?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a lot less resistant now to things. I used to be so resistant to any idea Matt had because I felt like he was forcing me into things, the gas pedal, and I had to be the brake. And now there's more trust because I realize our roles are different and what we bring to the table is different. And and I trust his decisions more. And I just try to support him. And I feel the same way. Like, I feel like he does the same for me. He tries to support me in the things that I'm going after and pursuing. So yeah, we just work so much better together, realizing what our strengths are and that we are a team. We're not meant to do this separately and alone. We're meant to do it together, whether it's business or it's in life. Like all of the skills and gifts that we have and we've been given, they help us in every area of life, not just in business, but in how we run the family and the household as well. So,
So with that, going into that, your life looks very different now. Sounds like you started to, trust Matt. I heard you say you started trusting Matt in his decisions, but it sounded like you trusted yourself first. You trusted who you were and your strengths. It sounds like that you could finally share with Matt and finally trust him because you trust yourself. And that's what I'm hearing from you, what kind of initiated. And so jumping into it now, your life looks very different. Your relationship looks really different from you developing as the leaders you are now. And it started with just leading yourself, being authentic, being true to who you are, and taking advantage of the powers and the gifts that we currently have. So what does it look like now for you in your business, in your relationships, and the people you surround yourselves with, and the things that you protect yourself against?
Mm-hmm.
You want to take it?
Sure. I would say, and Dr. Danny, are we still coming through okay? Like as far as audio, video?
Yes,
perfect.
absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. So Christin and I, so I actually heard this on a podcast Christin was listening to recently, and it put into words what we have been doing, and what I had figured out, but this podcast put it into words. And what that is when it comes to being in a relationship, there are 3 relationships. And this is a Jay Shetty, it comes from him. I don't know if he's the author of it or it comes from somewhere else, but there's 3 relationships. And the first relationship is the one that you have with yourself. The second relationship is the one that your partner has with themselves. And then the third relationship is the one that you have between you two. So, Chris and I, we have been on this path where what we started doing is really just setting much higher standards for ourselves. Personally, professionally, relationally, and just really setting a much higher bar than we had ever had before, and being very intentional about doing the individual work to be reaching the bar that we had set for ourselves. And, you hear that saying that you can't give to others what you don't have, right? And so, how can you show up for your spouse, for your kids, for your team, your friends, in a way that you can be a 10 out of 10 for them if you yourself are at a 6 out of 10, right? And so you've got to make yourself a priority, your mental health, your physical health. You've got to be in a place to where you're optimized in any way and every way that you can be. So we've been on that path as individuals, knowing that if we can get to a place where we are super healthy, then what we have to offer each other is way, way more. Part of that journey has been to be very particular about who it is that we spend our time with and what we spend our time doing. We have pushed out and dramatically edited or even deleted, in some cases, relationships. And that includes friends and family. And we will not allow for other people who have chosen to take the path of living a life of the glass is half empty, not taking ownership of their actions and outcomes, people who are drawn to drama or conflict or whatever it is that we don't want to be pulled into our ethers. We have pushed them out. It's not to say that they're bad people, but we are so clear-eyed on what it is that we want to achieve in this short life that we simply can't allow for it, because it doesn't. Drama and conflict and toxicity, those things do not fit within us achieving our goals. So part of it has been pushing out the people, the circumstances, the habits that introduce those kinds of things, and in the place of those people, pulling in healthy people who have big dreams and aspirations, people who are hungry to create bigger and bigger impact on this world, and getting into much closer proximity to them. We've had to earn our seat at the table for some of these relationships, and we make other people earn their seat at our table. We love it when people are hungry to grow and develop, and we welcome them to earn a seat at our table, and we are committed to doing the work for us to earn the seat at their table as well. And so, in going about it that way and being really very intentional, and not compromising, we have core values that we use as like the North Star of making decisions and the lens that we filter things through. And our core values are unique to us. Like I have mine, she has hers, but when it comes to where they're at, as far as where the bar is set, they are set at a very high level. And so that has really opened up a lot of amazing opportunities for us, both personally and professionally. I mean, we are in, the best place we've ever been as a couple. Next Wednesday, we celebrate 17 years together, married, 20 years, I think, in total, very quickly approaching the point where we've been together longer than we weren't together in this life.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
we're very proud of that. We have an incredible son who's just he's proving that he's just this incredible asset to the world, and that this world is a far better place for him being on it than if he weren't. And then from a professional standpoint, I mean, we have some really cool things that we're going got going on. Both her and I work within a software company. It's a company that has a target valuation of $100 million. Because of the work that we had done, the opportunity was presented to me to come on board as the executive vice president of this company. But with that was ownership in it. And we were given equity in this ownership. So we were presented a really cool, amazing opportunity there. And both her and I work actively every day in that company. We also have an executive level coaching company, and Dr. Danny, you were a client and mentioned, the success that you had in it. And we've been doing that for a couple of years now, and have served and helped entrepreneurs in a variety of different areas dramatically improve the circumstances of their business. And I love doing that, being a part of that, because it was being coached and mentored myself that changed everything for us. And it was when I was presented with the opportunity to acknowledge the things that were going wrong and given an opportunity to start working on them. So I love being in a place where I can give back and now be that mentor and trusted advisor and coach for other entrepreneurs. So that's been incredibly successful for the last, I think over 2 years now. We've been doing that.
Yeah.
Of course, the Squire Program and the project is something that I co-founded with 4 others, and you went through the Squire Program project as well. I can't remember.
Squire with my older son.
Squire, yes, okay. And now we're getting ready to launch this couples community, and it's starting with a really big event. It's a really cool 2-day event that we're doing in July. That is the launching point for this couples community, to where we focus on 3 things: health, wealth, and relationships. Those are the pillars of this community. And selfishly, it's kind of our way of surrounding ourselves with other really cool, really intentional couples who are hungry to achieve more together, right? As a married unit, couples, you pick your spouse, right? We have a son. We didn't get to pick our son, right? We did decide we want to have a child, but we didn't get to pick if he was a boy or a girl. He was a month early. We didn't get to choose him coming a month early. He decided to go footling breech, and Kristen had to have an emergency C-section, right? We didn't get to pick our son. We picked each other. And we chose to do life together. So we're building a family together. We're building a future together, and businesses together. And when you're going to do life together like that, what you can accomplish when you are on the same page and you are progressively working yourself closer and closer to the full potential that you have. I call it a force multiplication. Like, it goes from having 2 people like leading the charge in the family to what seems like 10. And so, selfishly starting this community, it's our way of pulling in other couples that really want to have massive impact in their life, in their community, in their relationships, and leave just as big of a footprint on this earth that they possibly can. And I couldn't be more excited about that and the opportunity to be around these other amazing couples. And then we have a really cool investment we just got involved with a couple of others, and getting in on an equity fund for a luxury home in Arizona. And so just a lot of cool things, man. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
And to touch on like the community piece of it, and just wrapping up everything Matt said, I think the thing that excites me most is now we don't do things alone either. For so long, we were just trying to muscle through and figure things out alone. And in part of this growth process, we've realized the value of being authentic, sharing our hardships, and learning and growing from others. And so that's what I'm excited about within the community too, is like Matt said, selfishly, people will be serving us whether they realize it or not, in the sense that we'll be learning and growing from them. And hopefully we're providing that learning and growth opportunity for for those couples and people who are part of it as well. But yeah, I think that's been one of the big things is we do surround ourselves with awesome people, but we're also reaching out when we don't know the answer to something, rather than just trying to muscle through and figure it out on our own. We go to people who have already been there and we say, we need help. We don't know what to do. So
yeah, and I think we do. I think we definitely do more as a couple, especially than the average couples. I mean, this morning we're on the mats. We do jujitsu together. So Kristen, Carter, and I were on the mats doing jujitsu this morning, and we do a lot. It is definitely an outlier for us not to be doing things together. And I think it is so cool. And having this conversation, it just makes me think about how, like Kristen said, how much we did apart. Like virtually everything we did apart was apart before. And we didn't really want to spend the time together, right? Now it couldn't be more opposite. Like we do virtually everything together. And we have non-negotiable date nights that we go on every single Wednesday. And, it's just a really cool thing when you find yourself aligned with your spouse to the point to where you genuinely enjoy doing life with them. Right. So it is a really cool thing.
I'm hearing that's real partnership. You're really hand in hand tackling things and having experiences together. And it looks like life is so much more fun when you're not doing it alone.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. Especially again, like the one person you chose to do life with. Like if you're waking up in the morning and you're rolling over and the person that's laying next to you in the bed with, like if there's a lack of connection there or a lack of fulfillment, a lack of excitement, that is like you've got to be finding yourself asking yourself, like, what the hell am I doing this for? Right. Like if you go to a job that you don't like every day, or, you just lack fulfillment and excitement in your life, like that's no way to live. But, we are living proof that even if somebody is in a really bad place in their relationships or in a really bad place with their job and what they do professionally, you can absolutely rebound from it without throwing in the towel, without hitting the ripcord. Like you don't need to go file a divorce or go get, be separated. You don't need to, file bankruptcy and fold up the business. Like we ended up selling the business and making some money. It wasn't a lot of money, but we sold the business and made money from something that was just draining us. And in 2019 and so you can, if you're willing to put in the work and be really, really intentional around who you surround yourself with, and understand that the power of proximity, it matters, man. It really matters. Like the rooms that you go into and the people within those rooms, it will make or break you. And if you're willing to surround yourself with the right people and do the work, and you're willing to like fight it out in a way of like we want to work this out. Like we want to come on the other side of this and start feeling fulfilled and connected and happy and excited as a couple and as a family. We are living proof that it can absolutely be done. You gotta dig in and take ownership, lead yourself first before you can ever think that you can lead somebody else. Do the work on yourself, get yourself whole, and know that, that's required before you can give to your family, to your employees, to your community and friends. You got to do that before you can give your full to them.
In that, I heard you and Kristen say multiple times about just doing the work for yourself. And a lot of people may have an assumption, what does that mean to do the work on myself? What would it look like for someone who's watching this, listening to this, and that you're looking at and you're like, hey, you see so much potential in this human being. If only they did the work, what would it look like for them starting today, starting tomorrow morning to do the work?
Yeah. You want to answer that first?
Sure. I think just recognizing and tuning into what you need personally. Yeah, I think for both of us, like we let our health kind of go by the wayside. I mean, I was teaching classes, like training clients and stuff as a personal trainer on the side. And so I was still very active, but I still wasn't taking care of my mental well-being very well, my spiritual well-being. I wasn't sleeping well. I was eating okay, but probably even that wasn't great. So just tuning in to those things that you need and then creating discipline and changing behaviors to make those things habits. And it's not an easy thing and it doesn't happen overnight, but that's where the discipline comes into play. So committing to yourself to do these things because you know that at the end of the day, you're going to feel more fulfilled or you're going to feel better and your cup's going to be full from doing those things. So,
yeah, look, like it's not there's no hacks in life, right? There, if you choose to take shortcuts, there's a cost to that because success is earned, right? Respect is earned. Success doesn't just fall in people's laps. And if everybody they can determine for themselves what wealth looks like and what happiness looks like and what it is that they want to achieve with the time that they have on this earth, right? That's everybody's individual decision to make. And as a couple, you make it as a family. But when it comes to the question of like, where do we start and what does personal development look like? What does doing the work look like? It looks like, setting goals, big, audacious goals, and thinking much bigger than the average person thinks, right? And not to be afraid of setting big goals that if your friends or family say that's like that, you're just dreaming too big. Like, what about this instead? Know that if you set big goals for yourself and other people try to talk you out of them, it is not a matter of you thinking too big. It's a matter of them thinking too small, right? And that's a tall tale sign that you probably want to evaluate editing that relationship, right? Because people who think small have a way of getting you to think smaller and doing and achieving smaller. But, set big, audacious goals and be very clear about what a win looks like. And know that core values are essential in achieving those goals. So, establish 3 to 6 clearly defined core values that are non-negotiable. And they have to make sense in a way to where if you were to be presented with what appears to be an opportunity or what appears to be an option that you might take, you filter this option or opportunity or decision through the lens and filter of your core values. And you if they're non-negotiable, which they need to be, then you'll come up with the answer and the correct answer, and that will help you stay on track to whatever those big audacious goals are. It means to be willing to be polarizing, to push away the things that are not serving you well and not putting you on the right track for achieving your goals or delaying you achieving those goals, right? And being willing to edit or even delete relationships, regardless if that's family or not, and to be okay with that. It means to do the work is to recognize that, if you're either stacking wins or losses every day, like it's one or the other, right? And at the end of the day, if you've stacked more wins than losses, and if at the end of the week you've done the same, and at the end of the month, and you build a track record, knowing that we all fall on our face and we have our bad days, but as a overarching rule, if what you're doing is stacking more wins and losses, you're going to be progressing. and you can be confident that you're better today than you were yesterday, but there's more work to be done. So do the work and be better tomorrow than you are today. And just live a life of intentionality to where you are surrounding yourself with the people, the circumstances, the opportunities to progress. And you got to build momentum. Building momentum is a slow and tedious process, right? But once you've got that momentum going, you just need to keep doing the things that you've been doing that have built it and protect it. Once you lose it, that is what will put people into a spiral, right? Because they see what they achieved, and now they're not achieving the same thing anymore, and so they just get devastated by it. You've got to protect that and safeguard the success habits that you've developed that have gotten you there. And don't ever compromise. The rent is due every single day, say, right? Like, don't ever get complacent. So when you find something that works, keep your foot firmly smashed on that gas pedal and keep doing that thing. Don't expect people to just come to you with opportunities and to welcome you into their circles. Like, you've got to earn your place there. Read books, or listen to podcasts. You know, there's so much content out there. I mean, look at what you're doing, Dr. Danny. Like, do you charge for people to listen to this podcast?
No, just to help one person out there.
That's right. There's countless people out there just like you who are producing amazing content, where if somebody's willing to listen to this instead of listen to the latest, I don't know, what's that one song?
Christen,
WAP? The WAP song? You ever WAP? You know what WAP is?
I don't know what the WAP is, but I also found out LOL did not mean laugh out loud. So
yeah. People, we all have the same hours in a day. We all have the same days in a month, and what you do with it matters. So, people don't need to overcomplicate what it means to do the work. You like look around and identify like what success, what wealth, what happiness looks like. And there are other people who have already paved the path and represent the circumstances that you want for yourself and your family, and do what they've done. Like, just do what they did. If they went to certain seminars, if they hired, certain coaches, if they, suggest certain books, if they have a podcast, like, just follow those clues. They've already been left for you. You don't need to take extra arrows in your back and fall into pitfalls or get off course or walk through molasses. Like, Mario Kart, where there's the parts where like they're like the speed strips, it's like the people who have come before us who have already fought the fight. They've already figured out the solutions to collapse time to distance. They leave those little speed strips. Like, get to one of those and accelerate by the lessons that they're teaching and putting out there for the world. It just has to be consumed. And then the last thing I would say is, knowledge is not power. Like, people think if you listen to a book or a podcast and like you consume all this information, that all of a sudden you're going to be better. No, you're not. Like, you've got to put it into action, right? I think it was Mother Teresa who said, "What is empathy without action?" Right? You can feel empathetic, but what is it like if you feel bad for somebody, or like, you care about their struggles, but you go on your way and do nothing about it? Like, what good is that to anybody? You've got to put it into action and know that, like, the work is yours to do. And if you're willing to do it, the reward is there for you to reap. But if you're not willing to do it, you're going to continue to get the things that you accept.
So, Matt, Christen, how can people, reach out to you? How can they learn more about you? Maybe your coaching program, Matt. What's a good way for whoever's listening to hear that's really connecting with you and your story right now to learn more about you?
Well, we're on social media. So you can find me at Matt Schneider _official. You can find Christen at
C Schneider 25.
C Schneider 25. We have a website for our coaching, which is ignitionyear.com. So if you're an entrepreneur and you know that your business is capable of achieving more, you know that there's an opportunity to get more efficient, more effective, more profitable, and you're not quite sure how to get there, or things you've done haven't quite worked, you probably want to check out that website and have a conversation as to whether or not we can help. And then, you know, the couples event, like if you have anybody listening that's in a relationship of any kind, or even if they're single but they want to be in a healthy relationship and they want to surround themselves with other healthy couples, go to that event, July 13 and 14. It's in Boise, Idaho. ignitionmastermind.com. I'm sure these links will be in the show notes, but ignitionmastermind.com. There's only a small handful of tickets left, and that's going to be like several speed strips all stacked together for people in that room, and focused on health, wealth, and relationships.
Awesome. Matt, Christen, thank you guys so much for really investing your time here to share with us your story. You guys didn't have to be. You guys have extremely busy lives. You got so many things that you're creating an impact on every single day, along with your family time as well. So thank you so much for taking this time to share with me, share with anyone's listening, and just having that spirit of giving it away and leaving an impact on this life.
Totally. Yeah, man. Our pleasure, dude.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.